All right, here we go. I do still see people filing in, so we're going to wait a little bit here and see if we can get a couple more, and then we'll go into our webinar. I hope everyone had a great summer. As you're about to find out, DesignSafe had a great summer too.
Lots to talk about.
All right, Ellen, you set?
Sounds good.
Awesome. All right, let's get going. Hey, welcome everyone to a brand new semester, and that means another round of our DesignSafe webinars. I'm so happy that you all were able to join us. As I kind of made a reference to a little bit ago, DesignSafe has gone through a lot of updates and a lot of changes with the newest version that's released. And so we have a webinar dedicated to what those changes are. Whoops. Make sure I got the right, there we go. First off, I'd like to point out this QR code. If you can scan that and take a survey after the webinar is done, we really appreciate it. We really love your input. A lot of these webinars are, the ideas actually come from you all. So we really want to know how these webinars are, how you react to them, how you feel about them, what you think about it, what you think about the people presenting, and what future topics you might want to suggest that, we kind of have a webinar on next time. So we really appreciate your feedback. You have been an incredible community to us. So thank you. So I actually have a special job today of introducing DesignSafe's PI. So I'd like to talk a little bit about, so DesignSafe was launched about almost around 9-10 years ago now. And it was part of the Natural Science Foundation's Natural Hazards Engineering Research Infrastructure Program, also known as NHERI. And it was developed to provide a cyber infrastructure for natural hazards researchers. And honestly, since this launched under Ellen Rathje's guidance, DesignSafe has really flourished. It has grown to become like one of the central platforms for storing, sharing, and analyzing natural hazards research data and supporting the research engineering community's efforts to mitigate and better understand natural disasters and their impacts on the environment and society in general. And Ellen, this has been such an incredible portal and such an incredible gateway. Thank you so much for all your contributions over these past 9 years. It's been a pleasure working with you. And so with that, I'm going to hand this off to Ellen, and Ellen can guide you through all the updates that DesignSafe has put into production. All right. All yours,
Great.
Ellen. Let me stop my share.
Thanks, Charlie. I will never get used to those very kind introductions, but thank you very, very much.
By the way, everyone, you'll see at the bottom of your screen, there is a QA button. If you have any questions or anything, click on that, put your questions out there, and we will answer your questions at the end of the presentation. So thank you, Ellen.
Great.
All
Yeah,
yours.
wonderful. Thanks a lot, Charlie. So I'm very excited to be here to talk about what's new in DesignSafe. It's actually been a couple of years since I've done one of these webinars, and so it's certainly long overdue. But before I do get started, I did want to make sure everyone's aware that DesignSafe will continue to flourish beyond 2025. NSF recently announced that parts of NHERI will continue, and DesignSafe will be one of the components that have been invited to for a renewal proposal. So we look forward to serving you for many years to come. So with that, let's get started. And I want to first just remind us why we're here. And as researchers, there's lots of things we do, and a lot of it is focused around data, and that's kind of one of our core constituents. But once we have data or generate data, I want to do something to it. We may want to analyze it, apply an algorithm, et cetera, and that analysis needs to be done somewhere, and so we need computational resources. So these three components are critical to our research, but often what's missing is the middle that ties them all together, and that's what we consider the cyber infrastructure, and in particular, the DesignSafe cyber infrastructure for natural hazards. Now, you likely have been to the DesignSafe website before. If not, there's our website URL shown there. And just simply to navigate you through the main components, of course, we have our data repository, the data depot. We also have a reconnaissance portal, which is another mechanism for folks to identify data there specifically related to natural hazard events. And then we've got our tools and applications section where we support cloud-based tools that do simulation, data analytics, visualization, lots of different things. And of course, you're here because you are signed up for a webinar. So we have lots of information to help you use DesignSafe, whether it's through the Learning Center or through our user guides and use cases. Now, importantly, all of the software development that's done for DesignSafe and all of the compute and storage resources are provided by TAC, which is our Texas Advanced Computing Center. And so I'm going to make sure I highlight TAC as an important and key component to making DesignSafe successful. Now, usually when I talk about what's new in DesignSafe, I jump in to the user-facing components. But this time I'm going to step a little bit behind the scenes. And so just give me a slide or two to give you set the stage behind the scenes, because what's happening under the covers is now affecting you on the user-facing side. So let me talk a little bit about TAPIS, which is our API. And just to bring everyone up to speed, an API is an application programming interface and provides the rules and protocols that allow software applications to communicate with one another. And TAPIS is the underlying API that DesignSafe is built upon. So that really is the foundation. And over the last 10 plus years, TAPIS has been developed by TAC with various sources of funding, including NSF funding. So if you're interested in learning more about TAPIS, you can go to the URL here. Now, if you've used DesignSafe before in the underlying API, this was called Agave in the past, and is now transitioning with a slightly different name, TAPIS. We have, TappyPy, which is a Python package that allows you to interface with TAPIS. So there's a lot of power with understanding TAPIS, but most users you don't need to know. The reason I'm telling you this first and foremost is because TAPIS in the last couple of years has upgraded to their version 3, but DesignSafe had been built on version 2 because we were one of the first portals to be built on top of TAPIS at TAC. And so this summer we upgraded to V3, which provides a plethora of new capabilities. There's security enhancements. The way we track allocations is different. But that's all that's going to influence how you interact with DesignSafe. So if you don't want to know any more about the API, you can just forget about TAPIS, but I wanted to explain why some of the changes have come about. So let's just talk about accounts. So the first thing you need to know is, and this has always been the case, a DesignSafe account is a TAC account. So if you have a DesignSafe account, you can go to the TAC user portal and request allocations for different things. And so it's the same account. But now, since we've done the TAPIS V3 upgrade, the security enhancements require us to do multi-factor authentication, MFA. So if you've logged in since August, you may have realized that you had to go through this extra step of setting up your MFA and then using it to log into the portal. Now, we've set it up so that it can work with any of the authenticator apps you may be using. At Texas, we use Duo, so I use Duo, but whether you use Google Auth, 1Password, whatnot, any of them will work. And this all gets set up at the TAC user portal. So if you go here to the TAC user portal and log in with your regular DesignSafe credentials, no MFA required, you can then go set up your MFA. And so when you log into DesignSafe, you'll still do your login, you'll get the login screen, you have to put in your password, but then this window is going to pop up. I take my phone, I go to Duo, there's a 6-number token. I plug it in and I get into DesignSafe. If you need any help with this, submit a ticket and submit an email to help@designsafe-ci.org and we can help you get it set up. Okay. Now, the other thing that has happened with DesignSafe accounts, again, because of the upgrade, is now we're tracking the HPC, or the high performance computing allocations, user by user. It used to be part of a single kind of community account, but now we're tracking you user by user. You get approximately 10,000 SU per year as a base allocation, and larger allocations are available by request. There's a couple of other things I need to talk about with respect to allocations, is that to get set up on DesignSafe, we actually have to set you up on a few different allocations. So we have a separate one for advanced file transfer on Corral. So you can kind of see this. This is the TAC user portal. This is an example. To set up on our virtual machines, if you're running Jupyter on the virtual machines, we've got to set you up on DCV. We also give you those 10,000 SUs as kind of your portal HPC account. And then if you submit an allocation for a larger allocation, or submit a proposal email for a larger allocation, you'll see you'll get another specific allocation. So you can have a lot of allocations sitting here, and those can all be tracked at the TAC user portal. They'll all be listed here under the dashboard. Okay, so a little bit more to keep track of, but it allowed you to do so much more. Now, because of all these details of setting up all these allocations, if you're getting a new DesignSafe account, so you're registering for the first time, it may take up to about 2 business days to set everything up. We're working to automate that process so it's faster. Be a little patient with us if you're developing a new design, if you're registering for a new DesignSafe account. If you already have a DesignSafe account, a lot of this will already be set up. You may need to submit a ticket and ask for a specific allocation so you can start running some tools. Okay, now let's look at the user-facing stuff, which is typically more of interest to our user base. So now often I start talking about the data depot first, but I'm going to start on the tools and applications section because that's where we've made the most significant changes compared to what you may have seen in the past. So the first thing you'll notice, if you click on tools and applications in the navigation bar, you will see all the tools and applications listed. And this is just a small subset of the tools and applications. Number one, this used to be behind the login screen, so you couldn't see the applications until you logged in, which, you know, if you don't have an account, you didn't really realize if you might want to get an account. So we've brought all of this information outside the login screen so you can get an idea of what's available. And then you've noticed the look and feel is a little bit different. But again, simulation, codes, analysis, there's visualization, I'll get to that. They're all right here. Now, I want to talk a little bit about our strategy of why we have this tools and apps section. And it's really a strategy of how we can get people kind of on the on-ramp towards using more HPC. We want to lower the barriers of entry for using these tools, HPC, AI, machine learning, et cetera. And we've gone with a tiered approach. So these portal apps that you access through the web portal that utilize HPC on the back end are where you most likely will start. And these are mostly simulation codes. And I will mention the SimCenter tools are also available, and I'll talk a little bit more about them as well. But again, this is the easiest, the lowest threshold to get into using HPC. Now, at the next level is our Jupyter Lab or our Jupyterhub. Now, we have various Jupyter labs that provide access to different computational resources. They could be just simply virtual machines, so they're machines running at TAC instead of your desktop. but they could be HPC machines, so CPU and GPU resources that are available. So again, we've got different options there. From Jupyter, you can also submit jobs to the HPC systems via TAPIS. So again, I'm not going to get into the details on that, but again, that can be an efficient way to do job submission to the HPC resources. And some of our Jupyter labs are already pre-installed with relevant AI and machine learning support, CUDA, PyTorch, TensorFlow, which can, again, make it easier to take advantage of AI and machine learning. So that's kind of our second level. And at the deepest level is just going in directly onto the TAC resources, whether it's Frontera, Lone Star, or Stampede. Clearly, you know that these computers are in Texas based on the names that we give them. But here you've actually got command line access, SSH in, you're right at the Linux prompt and you run from there. But it can be a bit intimidating to start here. So that's why we want a tiered approach that starts here and can get you to be a power user eventually. Now, throughout this, what you see, and the key component is co-location of tools and the data throughout DesignSafe. So these areas your data will be available as well. Okay, so let's just look at an example of one of our most well-used tools, which is OpenSees. So now we've got a little bit of an overview, very clear link to the user guide if you want more information. We've got different video tutorials. Again, this is all still in front of the login screen. You have not needed to log in yet. And then you see the 4 different versions of OpenSees that we have available. And it's just once you say get started that you run into logging in and getting into the details. Now let's just take an example of using OpenSees MP. And once you click get started, you'll see something completely different than you might be used to in the past. Although a lot of the same components are there. We kind of take you through a little bit of a wizard for all the inputs. Those are kind of compiled over here. You select your directory, you select your main script. You have control now over which queue you are submitting your job to on the HPC systems. And again, that may, if you're not familiar with the queue system and the different queues, we're adding links to the TAC documentation so you know which queue to use. And here's your allocation. You can see this under mine. I have multiple allocations, so you can pick which allocation you actually want to charge the job to, take it out of that bank versus another. And again, if you're a little confused here, man, should I use OpenSees MP, SP, which one? You can jump to the user guide. And this is where over the last year or so, we've engaged, and Sylvia Mazzoni has become part of our TAC team, and she's done a great job enhancing the OpenSees user guide to help you understand the different OpenSees allocations that we have. We've got a little bit of a decision matrix to help understand which type of OpenSees may be appropriate for the problem that you're trying to analyze, as well as the fact that we have this tiered approach. We have multiple resources that you could run the application on. So again, a little bit more complex in terms of the decision tree, but we're trying to help you understand and make the best decision based on what you're trying to run, how big it is, and the resources that are available. So go check out our enhanced and updated user guide with this information. And also, I should mention during the NHERI Computational Symposium that's happening in February, we'll be having a training session that half day before the beginning of the workshop or the symposium. And so you might be interested in that if you want to know more. So I mentioned that we're always working closely with the SimCenter. And so now you can see clearly that the 6 SimCenter tools are listed in our simulation list of tools. So all of the 6 right here. And just to illustrate better how we work together, DesignSafe provides, the data storage, the computing resources, various tools and applications, all wrapped with the TAPIS API. And then the SimCenter is developing these tools that can run in the cloud, interface with our resources using Tapas, and really scalable to run either on your desktop or on the HPC. And as you can see by these names, there's an emphasis on uncertainty quantification with the SimCenter tools. Now, if we just take a look at one of the SimCenter tools, again, looks very similar to the OpenSees panel, a little bit more links to the SimCenter documentation and use case examples. But over here, you can see different versions. Now, if you have used any of the SimCenter tools, you know that they are downloadable, and then you can run them locally, or you can run them on DesignSafe, and that is still available. But what we're very close to also providing is an interactive version of the tool that runs on the web portal. So you don't need to download it, you don't need to install all of those things. You can just click the web portal version, and you'll be able to launch a job in that way. And in fact, it'll look very similar to what I showed you for OpenSees. You know, you're here, this is an example for QuoFem, but you pick the queue. We even have a dedicated queue for the SimCenter tools that hopefully can jump, get you on some compute nodes faster. You pick your allocation, etc. And then once you hit submit the job, you'll see in your job status that it's queuing, and ultimately you'll be able to open it. And this will look very similar to what you would run on your local computer. But instead, now here, this is the version you can run on your local computer. You can either run locally or run at DesignSafe. Well, that version that runs in the portal will make it much easier to run at DesignSafe as well. So we're looking forward to getting these up very, very soon so that you can take advantage of these tools a little bit more easily. So going back to the tools and applications page, I thought I'd mention a bit of what we've been doing with Jupyter. Many of you I know are using Jupyter. And if you now go to the Jupyter page, you'll see we have 3 Jupyters. Okay, again, some webinars, user guide, etc. But we have our typical Jupyterhub. That's the one you may have been using. You go to jupyter.designsafe-ci.org. That runs on our virtual machines. But then we also have these HPC versions, which run on either CPUs or GPUs, as I mentioned earlier. So here is what you will see when you log into Jupyter. This is kind of the old Jupyter that you're used to looking at. What you will notice, however, is there's 3 different images that you can pick from. Choice. What do I pick? Well, if you're starting anything new, go with 2024. It's the recommended default image. It's the most recent. It's got Python 3.9. You have some abilities to have persistent installations using the kernel utilities. So that's all great. But if you started in 2022, or maybe one of the classic version, you may want to go back and look at those. But anybody starting off new, stick with 2024. And now what's beautiful about Jupyter, and this is again just the regular Jupyter, once you head in, what you see is all of your folders from the data depot are there. Community data, my data, published, projects, etc. I'll talk about this work folder in a bit, but everything is here. So again, this can be your workspace to utilize DesignSafe and Jupyter and all your DesignSafe files. Now, the HPC Jupyter deploys directly on those HPC resources. So again, you're like on a node on Stampede, you're on a node in Frontera. So the CPU currently runs on compute nodes on Stampede 3. Now, the reason you might want to use that is it provides more memory, more speed. If you want to do data processing and parallel computing, using parallel computing, maybe up to 56 cores. The GPU runs on the NVIDIA RTX GPU nodes on our Frontera system. And this Jupyter Lab has pre-installed the commonly used Python AI packages such as TensorFlow, PyTorch, etc. Of course, then it makes it well suited for AI and machine learning applications. Now, however, you need to remember, if you're trying to run directly on a node on the HPC resources, you'll likely have to wait a bit in the queue because these are shared resources. So let's take a look at what this looks like. Again, this kind of looks like that OpenSees. Once you get to the area where you're picking a queue, you've got a job runtime, you pick your allocation that you want to charge to. But that's it. This is basically get you in the queue to get on a node. And then you click Submit Job. And what you'll see is you can go to the job status page and you'll see where we're at. So you can see, okay, we're queuing. So there we're queuing, and ultimately, and you can see for this time, I did this last week, within a minute, I was ready to go, and I was running, and when it's ready to run, you click open, and guess what's going to rear its head? Yes, MFA again, okay? So if you see this, authenticate with attack token, this password is your typical DesignSafe password, but this token you're going to have to go get from Duo, 1Password, Google Authenticator, whatever you're using to get your MFA. So again, this is very critical. When we put you right on an HPC node, we've got to make sure it's you. Now, again, you get into Jupyter, kind of looks like the other Jupyter, but now we're on Frontera. This is the GPU version. But what you notice here is the files are different. You don't have everything available like before, community data, projects, published. In fact, currently all you have is work. And what you see, this HPC work, which is the same, and we're still fiddling, we're trying to make sure all the naming conventions are consistent, but you can see input data folder, interface, IPy notebook, there it is. These are the files that are available on this system. And this is very deliberate because my data, my projects, that's on that Corral file system, which is a great file system, but is not as quick for opening files and data transfer and writing to files. The work directory, which is commonly used if you were going directly to the command line, you would use your work directory for the files you're working on. That's what we're doing here. And we're making it as easy as possible to get files into the work directory. So you can do it on the web browser, and then they're available to you in Jupyter. More information on Jupyter. We're also rehashing the user guide for Jupyter within our user guide. Wenyang Zhang and Krishna Kumar have been key to putting a lot of this together. And so, again, information on the different Jupyters, pros and cons of using one versus another. So that's a lot on the computational resource and tools side of DesignSafe. Now let's focus a bit more of what's been going on the data side. So we can go to the data depot, which is our main data repository. If you log in, and I'll talk a little bit about the recon portal too. If you've been to the data depot before, you know this. You know that you have private sections, you have public sections. So the private part of DesignSafe that's specific to you includes my data, that work directory, your projects. We link to some of the cloud service providers. And then on the public side, we've got our published projects, community data, and then some of the old NEIS data, if you're aware of the NEIS and the earthquake data that was collected up to 20 years ago. So as a DesignSafe user, a user of tools and doing work, my data and my projects is your main place to sit. But when you want to publish data, you need to be in my projects. And that's where you publish, you curate your data and ultimately publish. The curation process still works pretty much the same. So I'm not going to talk about how curation has changed. But you will notice a bit of a different look and feel from the published area. So here I'm in published. I'm not even logged in. Please note, to download data, you do not need to log in. To publish data, yes, of course, you must have an account and log in. But to download, you don't. And so a little bit different look and feel. These blue buttons help you better distinguish the type of data that is associated with each project. You can see you can search up here. You can search by different types of facilities or simulation types or field research types to find the data that is useful to you. Recon portal, you may or may not have seen this before. This is where you can find data from natural hazard events. So each of these push pins in our map represents a natural hazard event for which we have data. For just an example, clicking into say Hurricane Michael from 2018. Here's a long list of available data sets. Some are in DesignSafe, some are not. But here's an example from one of our NHERI partners, or two of our NHERI partners, Steer and Rapid. They had some data sets that they collected in the field. When you click on that link, it takes you to the data depot, to the data set. You've got all the information, importantly, how to cite the data. And I need to say that every talk I give. Remember, if you use data, or even if you use your own data that has been published, cite it formally in your reference list, okay? And we make it as easy as possible. You can copy and paste the citation right here, or you can download the citation in various formats and just put it into your citation databases, whatever you may use. So now here's an example. Again, you scroll down and start looking at the data, and it's nicely organized. We use some color coding to represent the organization. And in this case, for Hurricane Michael, they had damage assessments for non-buildings, for buildings, and then a whole nother information on hazard indicators, all of which can be used in a multitude of ways. Now, I'm super happy to announce, and this obviously happened a while ago, but this is the first webinar I've given since then, is that in January of 2023, we became certified as a trustworthy data repository by the Core Trust Seal Standards and Certification Board. That is a mouthful. So that's a 3-year certification. And to get that certification, you're evaluated on 16 components across 3 themes, which include our organizational infrastructure, our digital object management, and the technology that we use to store the data and make it available. And it's a notable accomplishment because fewer than 4% of the data repositories worldwide have been certified by Core Trust Seal. So there's about 115 certified repositories, over 3,000 registered repositories at re3data.org. So very, very proud of this. It was a lot of work to get this certification, and we're already working on the next one, making sure that we will maintain this certification going forward. So I wanted to show you a little bit more about some things that have changed on the side of what you'll see when you look at a published data set. So this is actually a simulation data set. It's one of our data set award winners from 2023, ARCStorm. It was about the atmospheric rivers in California. Similar to before, download the data set. That button may have moved. It may be a different color, but it's the same idea. Again, cite that data right up in your face. Please use it. Use the DOI. But this is what I really want to focus on, is the data metrics. Okay, you see downloads, views, citations. So we've updated our data usage metrics. And fortunately, we're working with an organization called Make Data Count, who's developed standards that we all can work towards using in our data counting. So let me show you a closer look at this. So first of all, we track 3 different things. Unique investigations, which represents a 1-hour session during which a user viewed either the metadata or any of the files in a data set. And when we say viewed the metadata, that's basically anything on the page. So if they went to your page, the project page, or accessed the file. A unique request, similarly, 1-hour session, but here they actually had to access a file, not just look at the metadata. Okay, and then the total requests represents total downloads, previews, copies of files, plus the full-on project downloads. And the reason we break this up is, some data sets may have 3 files. Another data set may have 3,000 files. How do we normalize between and compare? That's what the requests and investigations attempt to do. And then the total request kind of looks at all of it from a more of a traditional file by file standpoint. So when you publish a data set, we start tracking these metrics and we report them to you quarterly, every quarter until in perpetuity. And then they're aggregated over here to the left. So you can see for this ARC storm data set, 2,290 total requests, 1,000 unique investigations, 275 unique requests. I should also point out another reason we deal with this 1-hour session is that because you do not need to log in to download data, we can't just base it on a certain person logging in and downloading data. So it's another reason we do it that way. Now, since we started tracking these metrics in 2022, we've had over 45,000 unique requests. So that means 45,000 1-hour sessions where they have accessed files. And that's across all of our data sets. So in less than, in about 2.5, I think we started the beginning of 2022, near the beginning. So about 2.5 years, 45,000 unique requests, about 1,500 a month. So we're certainly seeing people accessing data in DesignSafe. Now, you also might be like, well, how much is a lot of use? And so what does it mean when I have 10 unique requests or 1,000? What's a big number? What's a small number? And so we're fortunate Maria Esteva, our data curator, did some benchmarking with some of our staff. And we looked at 182 data sets. And we looked at the unique requests per data set over the first 12 months post-publication. That's how we could normalize the time across all those data sets. And so you can see here the histogram of the number of unique requests. So we had a lot of data sets that maybe had between 5 and 15 unique requests. Remember, this is just how many data sets had this many unique requests. And then out here we had, very few that had, say, 50, 60, 70 unique requests. We had 9 what you might consider outliers, which had more than 100 unique requests. And in fact, that includes that ARC storm data set. So I mentioned this was one of our DesignSafe data set award winners. And it was interesting to look at over time how those unique requests vary with time. So you can see here we starting in May of 2022. You see, first of all, these 2 spikes. Now, I don't know about you, but my data doesn't usually get referenced in the New York Times, but this data set was because of the climate change, the atmospheric rivers, and then they ended up having, this happened basically after they did this study. So there were 2 New York Times articles that talked about the research, and boom, you see a big jump in unique requests. The DesignSafe, it was announced as a DesignSafe Dataset Award winner in June of 2023. So that also, created a bit of a spike. And now we can't necessarily explain all the spikes, but it does show how some data marketing can help you get more people to look at your data. We also are doing more traditional data tracking, manual tracking of data citations. But of course, in order to do this, this kind of requires you as researchers to do a good job citing data with a DOI in your reference list, which, is hard to do. Even Maria has caught me forgetting on a couple of my papers. But the key is what you see is from 2018 through Q1 of this year, we're seeing an increase in the number of data citations and DesignSafe citations in the literature. But of course, this is only going to get us so far. And so we started to explore how we can use AI with our counting citations. We're looking into this Dimensions AI service. where you can see here that if you just put in DesignSafe, and of course, we're not getting the granularity as the previous slide, but you can see over 1,000 publications referencing DesignSafe. If you look at how many of those publications are happening per year, you can see again, it's increasing in rate. Again, we haven't gotten to the end of 2024, so I wouldn't worry too much about that point yet. But again, you're seeing more than 250 per year. And then the other thing that they provided in terms of an impact metric is citations of your output. So how many citations have to your these papers representing our output are there? And what you're seeing here is we're up to 3,000 citations per year. So again, we know we're getting out there, and we're looking at better using AI now to understand in detail what these metrics are telling us. Okay, so user guide and use cases. I've alluded to this a little bit already, is that we did a major overhaul of the user guide and use cases. So again, this is what it looks like. It's always evolving. In fact, just today, I kind of approved some minor changes to the user guide, so it's always changing. Note that we have information not just for the tools and apps and simulation, but all you need to know about the data depot and curation. And for those of you who may be new to DesignSafe and are a little scared by that curation word, which sounds like you should be at the Metropolitan Museum of Art or something, we do provide curation guidance, and not just through the user guide, but Maria Esteva, our data curator, has office hours, online office hours, where you can meet with her on Zoom, go over your project, ask questions about the curation, and she'll help guide you through that process. Now, we are starting to have a lot of documentation. And I don't know about you, but I don't really like to read documentation, right? You may want to, we're the TikTok generation, or maybe I should say my kids are the TikTok generation, right? We want to watch 30-second videos. Or how about using some sort of GPT or LLM to search through the documentation? And so we're working on this right now and hope to release it next year, is a DesignSafe GPT prototype for our documentation. So for instance, you might just say, instead of trying to figure out, find in the documentation where it explains how to create a project, I can just type, how do I create a project in DesignSafe? And boom, we get a step-by-step procedure and even a link to that guide. And that gives you the even more detailed step-by-step guide. Maybe I want to do something a bit more sophisticated, or ask something a bit more sophisticated. I have a 1,000,000-element model for ADCIRC, storm surge code. Which version of ADCIRC should I run, and how should I run it effectively on DesignSafe? So how to run an ADCIRC simulation. So, you prepare your files, use the web portal. This is how you use the web portal. What if you want to use the Tapas API to submit, to do the simulation? And even if you get to this additional tips, it even recommends a parallel setup, because you said 1,000,000 elements and it knew that's a lot. So you'll likely need a parallel setup. So again, this is where we hope over the next couple of years, you're going to see a lot more GPT, LLM type of interface to help you best use DesignSafe resources. And then the last thing I want to mention are the use cases. Now, use cases, sometimes people hear that word, they don't really know what it is. Well, I like to think of it as just examples of how you could use DesignSafe in your research. So you can see if you go down to the use cases, and this is at the end on the user guide, so it's the same part of, so you can see it's still part of the user guide. We have different use cases related. Some are related to data analytics. Some are domain specific. So you see geohazard versus seismic versus wind and storm surge. A lot of these use cases don't only explain what they're doing, but they provide you Jupyter notebooks so you can build off of it. And one that I wanted to highlight here is the next generation liquefaction database and the Jupyter notebooks that Scott Brandenburg Kristen Ulmer and Paulo Zamora have put together as part of this NGL project. So again, a lot of information here in the on their use case page. Again, I know not all of you are geotechnical researchers like me, but just to give you an idea of the science behind it, we're very interested in trying to predict liquefaction during earthquakes. We do that based on field case histories, and now NGL has their own website where you can submit your case history to be added to the underlying data set. Now, because this database is very specific to a phenomenon called liquefaction, they developed their own schema that's very specific to liquefaction. It's not really going to work for anything else. And they house it in a SQL database. And that database is replicated to DesignSafe daily. And then Jupyter notebooks can be used to access the data that's available on DesignSafe. So here are some examples of the Jupyter notebooks available. There's a CPT viewer, so cone penetration test viewer. Again, click of a button, you can start looking at different sites and their CPT. If you want to do your own SQL queries, there's some example queries so you can pull the data that you want. But what I really want to emphasize is that now NGL has reached a subsequent phase where they're actually using the NGL database to develop new liquefaction procedures. But the current NGL database has over 450 different sites, over 1,000 cone penetration tests, over 1,000 boreholes, over 200 shear wave velocity profiles, and over 10,000 laboratory tests. That is not easily sent to you by email to analyze. And so the way the researchers are using it is through using DesignSafe Jupyter, and that's where the data interpretation and analysis are all taking place. And it also means that the researchers are always working on the most up-to-date data set. And again, these slides I'm going to show you come from Kristen Ulmer and Scott Brandenburg, who are some of the leaders of NGL. So again, they can be updating the data set today, and then tomorrow you're working with the most up-to-date data set in your scripts. And these are just examples. I wanted to highlight that these Jupyter notebooks are running on DesignSafe. So they were used to analyze the data to identify the critical layer for liquefaction. So you can see some visualization, some analysis. Here's some visualization of integrating the data, because every site, you have a map, but where are the observations of liquefaction from after the earthquake? Where are the CPT and boreholes located? What do the results look like? What are the lab test results? All, again, one-stop shop. And then even going to the data analysis phase. So NGL is getting very sophisticated in how they want to do their data analysis. So they've kind of got a Bayesian triggering model. So they're using the PyMC Python package, all available and installed on the DesignSafe Jupyterhub. So the data and the analysis and the results are all happening in the cloud at DesignSafe. So with that little tour of the changes, it's been a lot, but I just thought I'd give you some final thoughts. And I cannot emphasize enough that DesignSafe and our tax staff are here to help you achieve your research goals. That is the #1 reason we exist. It's not to further our own stuff. It's to help you do what you need to do. And so remember, we have those data curation office hours if you need help publishing your data. We have experts in high performance computing, data analytics, simulation that can help you make use of our resources for the tools that you have. Even if your tool is not currently installed on DesignSafe, we can help you with that. And when in doubt, I have 2 pieces of advice. Submit a ticket. And again, you have to log in to submit a ticket. So if you can't get logged in, submit an email to help@designsafe-ci.org. Or use Slack. When you create a DesignSafe account, you can get access to our Slack team. And you can see we've got Jupyter channels, we've got other channels, and you can ask questions from our tax staff there. And that is very useful as well. So I'll put back up the webinar survey QR code so you can take a picture of that, and we would really appreciate your feedback on the webinar. And then I will see if we have any questions that need to be answered. See what Charlie, what you got there?
No questions yet, but if anybody has any questions for Ellen, please feel free to, you may to type it in the little QA chat in the bottom, or just hit our real chat. But thank you, Ellen, so much. The changes look impressive, and we're looking forward to this year's webinar so we can actually show them off in use. So that'd be awesome.
Yeah, yeah. As much as I love all these hearts and clapping hands, I want to hear some questions or complaints.
All right, anyone?
Let me stop sharing here. I can start calling on people. This would be just like in class.
Voluntel.
Scott, what do you think? Anything you think I missed on this?
No, I think you hit all the details. Do we have the ability to unmute people if they want to ask a question out loud instead of through the Q&A? Sometimes that's better, but I don't know if we have that ability.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So if you'd like to ask a question, you could also raise your hand, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all right. I appreciate everyone joining today. And we look forward to serving you over the next few years and many years to come. And have a great day. Thanks, everybody.
Hey, thanks. Thank you, Ellen. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.